Man, sales is tough. I'm just not cut out to be a salesperson. Have you ever felt that way? Selling doesn't need to be so difficult. My name is Harry Spate. I'm here to serve and to help you succeed. Join me as we discuss sales made easy.
And so how do we help people live their very best life possible? That's what our business is. So how do I introduce the problem, demonstrate a solution, and not make people's eyes glaze over because this is too uncomfortable? And as you saw when you saw me speak, and it is in the book as well, even funerals, all right, even death, I'm able to help people look at it differently. For example, what I say about that is, do you want to be buried on the first floor, the third floor, the fifth floor, under the tree, out in the sun? Do you want to be buried next to your first wife, your second wife, or your girlfriend? Do you want your ashes scattered? If so, by whom and where? All right. So even as we talk, you're smiling, right? What it says is, because I end with, I don't care which one of those works for you, tell somebody, talk to your family, explain what you want, because you're a hero.
What is the word? Ladies and gentlemen, do I have a great guest today who's going to make light of a subject that a lot of us don't like to talk about, and that is getting older. So with me today is an author by the name of Scott Greenberg, and I'm just going to read a little bit about Scott. He's the host of the radio show, Oh My God, I'm Getting Older, and So Is My Mom, and Chief Executive Officer of Comfort Care Senior Services, which is a private duty, non-medical home health care agency in South Florida and beautiful Jacksonville. So Scott's got this cool book out, Oh My God, I'm Getting Older, and So Is My Mom. I started reading it, and it's a serious topic, but man, you can't help but laugh throughout it. So Scott, welcome to the Sales Made Easy show, and let's talk a little bit about why you wrote the book.
Thanks for having me, Harry. It's good to be here. I wrote the book. I don't want to make light of it because it's important, but it was really a moment of drunken stupor. I was interviewing on my radio show by the same title, and I had a physician on who was talking about strokes, and there was a woman who was listening to the radio show and had a fascination for the subject matter, and she didn't have a radio in her house, so she sat in her car, got a glass of wine during the commercials, and listened to the entire show. Called me the next morning, said, "Do you ever want to write a book?" So there's a couple of reasons I wrote the book. One, she convinced me that when you hand somebody a business card, you're a peddler. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being a peddler. I've been a peddler my whole life. She said, when you hand them a business card, you're a peddler. When you hand them a book, you're an expert. And so it really was a very arduous process. She was a publisher. She helped design the book. She put me together with a writer. Every word in that book is my word. Everything there is consistent with what I would say. It sounds like me. People who know me have come back and says, "God, I know that's you. It sounds just like you." But I did work with a writer who captured who I was, and we put the book together, and it's been amazing. I do a lot of presentations. That's how I met you. I'm doing another one this Friday for a church, and I'm doing a continuing education for FAU University in a couple of weeks. So it's all good. It's been a great experience.
Beautiful. Such a great topic. What's the reaction been? Because I loved it when I saw it, your presentation, but in general, how would you describe the reaction people have?
So I think, the most gratifying part about this is people call me all the time and say, "You really forced me to do something I either wasn't thinking of doing, that I didn't know about, that I didn't understand, or that I've been putting off." The problem as we age is that people tend to be reactionary. Nothing is ever pre-planned. And the reality is that when you do that, you invariably make big mistakes. You are dealing in moments of crisis. You're being reactive as opposed to being proactive. So I wrote the book trying to make light of very serious, not light of, but trying to put it in a kind of a humorous position. And all of the subjects have resonated with different people at different times. Give you a story that you'll love. I have a chapter on sex after 60 in the book, and I was being interviewed after the book came out by a magazine, and she was a young lady, maybe 25, 6, obviously new in her career, and she was fascinated with that subject matter. She said, I'm really interested in that subject because the reality is that 25% of people over the age of 75 are having sex once a week. All right. And she says, is that true? And I said, yeah, that's true. And your response, what you would think her response would be is entirely different. What she did is she looked at me and said, I can't wait to be 75. It was just, the book has brought reality in a way to people who otherwise um, wouldn't be facing these things. Now, the other part of it is it has made me an expert in my business. Whether I'm an expert or not doesn't really matter. People believe that it is. And it has been probably the single best thing I've done to advance our business because we do get a fair amount of play out of this.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So you're no longer a peddler; you're an expert. When did you start the business? Can you talk a little bit about that? And we can go a little back and forth about when you started that, and maybe even before that, what did you do before you started the business?
Right. So I had retired from a previous life. I was in the annual report design business, and I
Okay.
retired at 58. It was way too early. Um, I thought I had enough money to retire. It was 2008. And so by 2009, I was both bored and realized I didn't have enough money. So I had to look for something, and I was looking for something to do. And of course, by that time, I was 60, and nobody's hiring me at 60 to do, not the way I wanted to do the job anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'd buy a business, and I looked for a business, and you know, the, I think I'm a pretty smart guy, but the crooks are smarter. So I decided a franchise would be best, and so I started to look at franchises. And through a series of events, I ended up meeting a woman who was in a very failing franchise of Comfort Care Senior Services, and she was days away from closing her door and going out of business. So it was kind of where the peanut butter fell in the chocolate. Who'd have thunk it would taste so good? We made a great deal. I bought at that time 50% of the business, but I was controlling
Mm-hmm.
interest. So I contractually controlled. There was a licensure reason I did that. We're a licensed business. I have a lot of regulation. So
Yep.
that was 12 years ago, actually 12 years ago this month.
Hey, congratulations.
And thank you. And at the time, as I said, she was days away from going out of business. I funded the business. It made us a little healthy financially, took the pressure off, made up on the back bills, et cetera. And because she was still here, she was a good administrator. That allowed me to go out and sell, and that's what I did. I sold morning, noon, and night. I went to every networking meeting I could. I met every person I could possibly meet. I talked to everybody I possibly could talk to. And so I took a business that was doing $200,000 a year and losing money. It was April. By the end of the year, we had done 350. By the following year, we had done over a million. And through a series of later events, my daughter and son-in-law bought my then partner out, and then a few years later, my other daughter came and bought me out. And so I'm CEO, but the kids run the business and own the business, and we have been over $8 million.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we've had a pretty good run. I mean, it's been good. And I might add, this is really important to your audience, I believe. Okay, I have over 500 competitors in Palm Beach County where I stand. 500 competitors.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, so nobody was waiting for me to show up. It was so really important for us to identify and what our raison d'être was. Were we here? What made us any different? And so it took me a really long time to figure that out. Well, actually, it didn't take me a long time. I did figure it out soon, but with the help of others. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't come by myself. So,
So yeah, I mean, there's like 17 different directions we could go here.
yeah,
So I'm stunned, number one, that there's that much competition.
yeah.
And you said, you know what? I'm going to make it, instead of 499, I'm going to make it an even 500 or whatever the number is, right?
Right, right.
Were you intimidated at all by the amount of competition?
Harry, the very first day I was here, that I came to work, my partner at the time took me to a networking meeting, and there were about 50 people in this networking meeting. 30 of them were my competitors. So I looked around, and look, that's like a bullet between the eyes. I had to
Hmm.
figure out how to be different. Right? I knew that I had to figure out how to be different. And so what I started to do was to ask people what was missing in the marketplace. What were
Hmm.
the other 499 not doing? What
Hmm.
would make somebody consider using us as opposed to using some of the others? And I picked a lot of brains. And the light bulb moment was I was sitting with an Irish Catholic nurse, and she said to me, because Palm Beach County is a heavy Jewish population,
Hmm.
um, she said to me, if you could develop a program to do kosher caregiving, that would be a game changer. And I thought, wow, that is an interesting idea, right? That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
That
So,
hasn't been done yet. I mean, to me,
well, there
yeah.
isn't one kosher person, but
Okay.
but a small agency.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, because I was a franchise, I told people I was going to do, and the franchise put a press release out, and a local TV station and the Jewish press here picked up the story, and I hired a rabbi who, just in a small world, happened to be my rabbi when I lived in Pennsylvania. It's crazy. But he had relocated down here 30 years ago, and he's still here. So he trained some of my caregivers. We put a press release out. The news picked it up, and then the TV picked it up, and he was interviewed on TV. They didn't even interview me; they interviewed him. And the truth is that it's 12 years later, and I've had requests for kosher caregiving twice.
Oh my
Twice. I mean,
goodness.
nobody really cares.
Yeah.
But the story got picked up, and the story got picked up, and it opened doors. And one of the doors that opened was Jewish Family Services down here, and
Yeah.
they care for Holocaust survivors.
Hmm.
Um, and I, through a series of connections by networking like I did, I ended up meeting with the CEO, and she said, "I know." She said, "You want to be, you want us to refer clients to you, and you want to take them." And I said, "Well, that's pretty much the goal, but what do you need? How can I help you?"
Oh my goodness.
So she told
Yeah.
me, three particular problems. One, they don't pay very quickly, so I had to front the money for a long time. Two, they didn't pay a lot, all right, and three, they only had short cases, which is the death of our business. So I said to her, look, if you give me multiple short cases that I can stack them, I can figure out how to do this. That you don't pay me a lot for each case is okay, as long as you give me some of the other cases that you do pay a fair price for. And
Hmm.
then three, as far as the money, money's cheap. I can front the money. I can afford to do this. And one thing led to the other. We delivered a quality service. Look, like in any other business, the reality is, Harry, if you deliver the service, particularly a service business, if you deliver the service that people are buying and you do it properly, they'll be the path to your door. So we were manic about quality. We were manic about communication. We did all of those things. And fast forward 12 years later, she's gone. But today I partner with that agency, creating a second agency that is 50% owned by them, 50% owned by us, all the business in that agency. And they do business with six others like us. Ultimately, all of that business, or most of that business, will be ours. So that was a door opener. The other thing we did is chronic disease. Sadly, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, those are long-term clients. Those are terrible diseases. I don't think anything
Hmm.
right for me about that. But we decided to build an expertise in particularly Alzheimer's initially. So I went to the first. There's a conference down here, Alzheimer's Community Care. There's a conference down here, and I went to the first one, and every one of my competitors had booths. Right, we were all, there were maybe 100 booths there. 80 of them were home care agencies.
Hmm.
And I said, well, that's kind of stupid. Why would anybody stop at mine unless I have better candy? Um, so, so, so I did an RFP for the next year to be a speaker,
Okay.
um, and it was accepted. And because I'm a franchise, the franchisor helped me put together this program. It was incredibly well received because I can talk, right? As I told you before the interview, if it weren't my ability to talk, I'd be very thin. Um, the, the point being, um, all of a sudden I'm now again an expert as opposed to a salesperson. I wasn't a peddler in the hallway.
Mm.
Uh, and I've spoken at that conference 10 out of the last 12 years, and the only reason it isn't 12 out of 12 is two were canceled for COVID. I'm the only non-medical person that's spoken at every conference since. Now, in the last few years, my son-in-law partners with me in speaking because he's become an Alzheimer's expert. We developed an expertise. We got certified as Alzheimer's educators. We're not doctors. We don't pretend to be, but we really do know the Alzheimer's space. And Alzheimer's is, we're ground zero for Alzheimer's in Palm Beach County. So it was really critical for us, and that was a game changer. So
Yeah, brilliant.
yeah,
All right, so a serious topic, you know, being getting older is serious. The
right.
illnesses that come along with it are serious. You bring humor into it. Do people look at you and say, "Oh, this is sacrilegious"? You're making fun of my parents, or does that ever cross your mind, or do you just kind of go with it and just say, "Lighten up"?
So with all sincerity, that's the first time I've ever heard that. Nobody has
Okay, great. I guess it's not an issue then.
nobody has. I mean, that really is the first time. I'm not making that up. So,
Okay.
I no, I think what I have done is I have positioned the subject matter in a way that doesn't make people's skin crawl when they talk about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
it is really hard to take away the keys when Grandpa shouldn't be driving anymore or Dad
Yeah.
shouldn't be driving anymore. It really is family dysfunction, and I talk about family dysfunction there, is real. Kids, when the first time anybody says it's not about the money, it's about the money. So kids don't always get along. Mom always loved you more. Those are real hard subjects to talk about. So how do you navigate that? So I present the subject matter in challenging ways. How to choose an assisted living. My mother-in-law, I couldn't get the word nursing home or independent living out of my mouth before she'd scream at me. So
Yeah.
how do you put that in light that gets people to think about that? What about DNRs and healthcare surrogates and things about how do you hire a caregiver, right? Which is my business. How do you
Yeah.
hire a caregiver? I don't keep them sitting on the shelves. Everybody calls and says, "Send me your best caregiver." I always say, "Oh God, thanks you so much. She's sitting on the shelf right here. She's gonna pee so bad.
Just
All right,
looking for something to do.
her, I can bring her, I can send her to the toilet, she can go and she can come to your house." So I explain it and give people the tools to achieve what they want to achieve and not make them shy away from it. It's about being proactive. It's about being in control instead of reactive and out of control. And as we age, that is precisely what people need because you don't know what you don't know, and what you don't
Mm-hmm.
know is going to hit you right between the eyes in this aging population. We are aging undoubtedly, but we're not aging healthierly. Is that a word? We're not dating healthier, and so how do we help people live their very best life possible? That's what our business is. So how do I introduce the problem, demonstrate a solution, and not make people's eyes glaze over because this is too uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And as you saw when you saw me speak, and it is in the book as well, even funerals, all right, even death, I'm able to help people look at it differently. For example, what I say about that is, do you want to be buried on the first floor, the third floor, the fifth floor, under the tree, out in the sun? Do you want to be buried next to your first wife, your second wife, or your girlfriend? Do you want your ashes scattered? If so, by whom and where? All right. So even as we talk, you're smiling, right? But what it says is, because I end with, I don't care which one of those works for you, tell somebody,
Mm-hmm.
talk to your family, explain what you want, because you're a hero. Right? We've done wonderful things in our lives. It's important for us to recognize that. So when I die, I don't want my daughters fighting over what grandpa or dad wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to celebrate my life because I think I've done pretty good it's all worked out. So I think what I've tried to do is to position a challenging subject in a way that gets people willing to talk, to look at it differently, to generate and stimulate conversation. And on the sales side, all right, gives the person on the other end the sense that I understand the reality of what they're going through, that they are living the dream, which is not quite the dream they thought they were going to live, right?
Right.
Everybody thought they were going to take that sailboat down the intracoastal waterway with a glass of wine in the hand or the nature walk. They didn't think they'd have a caregiver behind them pushing a wheelchair. So those are real issues. But
Right.
if I can demonstrate those topics to people in a way that gets them to think about it, do something about it, and enhances the quality of their life. All right, one, they become my friends, my clients, they recommend me to others, and two, I think I've improved their quality of life. But for people
Yeah.
like me, what would these people do? So that's my
Yeah.
goal,
It's
improve the quality.
beautiful. I mean, I left that speech and I immediately talked to my wife and said, we got to come up with something. Not like I'm, thinking I'm going to croak here anytime soon, but who knows, right?
Right,
So we've been talking about it off and on now for the past couple of months.
right,
And I was just out in a park the other day with her, and I said, I think I just want my ashes spread out in some kind of natural preserve.
right.
You know, that came from Scott Greenberg of all people.
Well, good. I mean, that's great.
So thank you, Scott. So I'm out nature, beautiful walk, and your beautiful face popped in my head and said, when I croak, throw my ashes around these plants and I'm good.
Right.
Which I won't care by then anyway.
No, but that's great. That's the point. It's exactly the point. And you see, you're laughing about it because
Yeah.
it's a serious subject, but you're able to talk about it, smile about it, and you're actually having a conversation that desperately needs to be had.
Yeah.
And that's really the point. So selling, right, is about finding somebody's pain point, solving and curing their pain point, and offering solutions. And if you're the best solution, why wouldn't they choose you?
Hmm.
And so that is the book's been a great opportunity, as has the radio show.
Yeah.
Which in my radio show, I never talk about my business.
All right. So what is the radio show and how did you get started in that?
Well, that was also that moment of drunken stupor I referred to before. But I was um, I was an advertiser on a cardiologist radio show. I was trying to generate new business, and part of my advertising buy entitled me to 5 minutes live on his show once a month.
Okay.
And so the first time I went live on his show, unbeknownst to me, he had had issues with private duty home care for a family member the year before. So he was very inquisitive. So my 5 minutes turned into 25 minutes.
Oh.
Another part of my ad buy allowed me to do a morning drive spot with a very hot DJ at the time, who was pretty popular in the morning drive. So I'm sitting there getting ready to do my morning drive the next day. And I said to the station manager, a fellow I said to the station manager, I said, you ought to do a show about boomers and their parents. It's your demographic. It's everything about your station. It's an
Hmm.
oldies station. Everybody's
Hmm.
listening here. Um, I said, that would be perfect for you. And he
Hmm.
said, I'd love to do a show like that. I don't know anybody who'll do it. I said, I'll do it. And he said, are you serious? I said, not even a little bit. Um, I said, but let me think about it. So I went home, I opened my laptop, and I typed up 50 subject matters in a matter of 15 minutes. And so I came
Yeah.
back to him a couple of days later and said, I can do this. He said, what do you want to call it? And I had all these boring, healthy aging,
Hmm.
living gracefully, all these. I said, but it's really, oh my God, I'm getting older. So is my mom. He said, I love it. And so that was it. And originally started at a half hour, and I did a half hour for about 2 or 3 months, and then the station really wanted me to go to an hour, and I thought, how am I ever going to find guests for an hour? And the reality is that an hour is easier than a half hour because I can really drill down on a subject. So I never
Hmm.
talk about my business, never, ever, ever talk about my board. I don't say never, but almost never talk
Yeah.
about my business. But the guests that I have on from various components in the industry, elder law attorneys, Alzheimer's, I did AmeriCorps volunteer last night. I'm doing Alzheimer's disease next week. I'm doing occupational therapy the week after. I have doctors and whatever. Um, so they all come on, and many of them become friends and refer us business. So between the radio show and the book, it's been unbelievably powerful in driving our business because I get to know my guests. And because if I only talked about home care every week, people would be turning the dial in a New York
Hmm.
market. But last night we got a phone call by somebody who needed the service we were talking about. Put them in touch with how they can actually go down and get some
Yeah.
help, some benefit. So it was just and of course I wasn't a radio guy. I really wasn't.
You do have a face for radio, though.
I do, and everybody has said that. Right? One day I have a cap on my front tooth, and it fell off, and I could still do the show. And my wife was like, "You have a face for radio." Um,
Oh
but
my goodness.
my first guest was a fellow who publishes a magazine down here, and the reason I had him is his brother-in-law is Howard Stern, so he had been on the radio, knew a lot about radio,
All
and
right. So his brother-in-law is Howard Stern.
yeah, yeah,
Oh my
he
goodness.
was married to Howard's first wife. All right,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Howard's first wife
It's
was his
his
sister,
sister. There you go. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So it's his brother-in-law. So he had actually
Jeez.
been in the radio studio. So I had him on because one, we were friendly, two, he knew radio, and I knew
Yeah.
nothing about radio. And so I got through the first show. The second week was the woman I talked about from Jewish Family Services. She had her own radio show on a different platform. And so she was good. And the third person I had on, I talked about assisted living and independent living. And that person now works with us. She's head of our sales department. And she's been here for now 9 years. And I'm doing a radio show for 10 years. And
Hmm.
she was my third guest. And now she works with us. And it's been great.
Yeah.
It's been unbelievable. It's been different, and it ended up, doing my book, which has opened up a wealth of doors and so on. So
Yeah. So did you know where you were going when you started the radio? Did you? I mean, did
I
you
thought it would
envision
last.
where?
No, Harry, I thought it would last 6 weeks. I mean, we're
Yeah.
10 years now. Look, I own the show. I buy the time. All right.
Yeah.
If I sell advertising, which I do, if somebody asks me, it would defray my cost. But that's not my mission. I give
Hmm.
some of my commercial space. I give to charity for various things that charities can deliver. I have never made a dime on my radio, except for the fact that it has driven clientele to my business.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
The radio show is never in of itself actually paid for.
Right. But you're not getting paid to speak either, right?
Right?
I mean, generally,
No, you're
right?
right. Right. And whenever I get paid, I typically donate. So
Yeah.
I back to whoever is paying me. That's not my mission.
But when people see you,
Right.
right? So finish the thought there, right, for me, because I
So
think you're onto it, right?
I think when you do good, right? When your mission is to do good, it comes back to you.
Yeah.
And look, I've been blessed. I've had a great sales career. I had no reason. I never finished college. I had no reason to have had any level of success near what I've enjoyed. I grew up very poor. My father was a great salesman. He was a full of brush man. My father was
Oh, okay. I've heard of them.
knocked on doors, right? So
Yeah. Wow.
a good training. And I started an insurance business, and then I sold vacuum cleaners. I mean, I had a pretty interesting sales beginning. Um, but I think that the more you give, the more you get. And so, in the case of both the radio show and some other things, it's my way of giving back to the community, and ultimately, it comes back to me in spades.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give your audience the wrong impression. You got to be really good at what you do. You got to become an expert in your business. I'm, what's the word? I'm insatiably curious. I
Hmm.
always want to know more, learn more. It's okay not to know the answer to a question the first time, but if the second time you don't know it, that's on you. So I always want to get educated, be smarter, be the very best that I possibly can. I want to be different in a space where I have 500 competitors. I want to be different in the space I was in before, the annual report design firm. Everybody with a Macintosh thought he was an annual report designer. And we went from a nobody to the largest designer of annual reports in America. and we did that. My I had other sales careers, and always managed to uh, raise the bar. And
Hmm.
in this business, I had no idea. I mean, today we support three families. I have both my daughters and sons-in-law here. Uh, my wife and I are still here. We're a family business,
Plus all your employees.
and we have about 200
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, that's a big. I mean, that's a big impact, right, in
operations.
the community.
Yeah. And when I came here again, we had six clients, and a woman who owned it at the time and her son. Well, she had two
Yeah.
sons.
So when you signed up for the franchise, all right, you're buying one that was on its way out, so to
Right.
speak. Did you? I mean, what was the vision then?
Well, look, it's not a rocket science idea that servicing old people in Florida could be profitable. I, I, I did a lot of homework and I did a lot of research, and I did know
Hmm.
there was competition. But to me, competition validates the market. It tells
Mm.
you there's great need.
Yeah.
Otherwise, these competitors wouldn't be around, and they wouldn't all be surviving. So it validates the need. Um, so the competition didn't scare me so much. The regulatory environment scared me. Um, I thought that I knew my sales skills were pretty good. The way I bought the business, my administrative side, which is a weakness for me, was handled.
Hmm.
About 6 months after that, my wife came in and started to help because we started to grow. Um, I had never had any vision for it to go this big. And to be honest with you, I didn't think I'd work this long. I thought I'd do it for a few years, recover from the '09 disaster, and I'd go
Yeah.
back to playing golf 5 days a week. Um, it became much more than I anticipated it to
Hmm.
be. Um, and then and I will tell you honestly, seniors were not even a passion. Had I had a passion, it likely
Oh.
would be kids.
Yeah.
But men and kids is a bad mixture in today's litigious society. Um,
Right.
so seniors didn't hold any particular special appeal. But once I got into the business, it became an obsession. And I am obsessive about what we do and making sure we do it as good as we possibly can.
Man, I'd like to come back to that one. One question is bugging me is you sound like you've been around sales forever,
Uh,
and over the past 10, 12 years, you haven't really mentioned much about your product when you're speaking or you're on the radio show. And it seems like today, even today, sales is all about people telling and vomiting all over people about what they do and how they're the best and how amazing their products are and services. Were you always like this, or did you have some kind of light bulb moment, so to speak, that I'm going to start giving and see where that takes me?
so I've been very blessed. I've said that I think once before earlier. I've had great mentors. I never thought I was all that particularly smart. As I said, I didn't graduate college. I do
Mm-hmm.
read. I read voraciously, or not as much today as I did then. But I had a great mentor at the Hoover Company. I really did. Which I had a great mentor. I originally in the life insurance business, and I went in. Had a great mentor there. I went in with my father, and it wasn't my father. My father and I almost never spoke after that relationship. I mean, we stayed connected, but
Mm-hmm.
peripherally. Um, but I did have another good mentor there. I had a good mentor at the Hoover Company. Ultimately, when I got into the annual report business, it was with somebody out of the Hoover Company, and he and I became incredibly good friends, and he was a great mentor. And so I think if I've had a skill, I don't know that I do, but if I have a skill, it's that I am able to identify good people and separate them from the pretenders. I tell people all the time, if I made a left turn instead of a right turn, I'd be serving people dinner instead of eating dinner. I could have very easily gone in a different direction, but I've identified mentors who gave me great advice, found the good in me that I didn't know existed. And so we've always been charitable. Don't get me wrong, I'm an unabashed capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
I need money, want money, like money, want more of it. And selling is my way to get it. So I make no apologies
Yeah.
for wanting to be successful. But money is the scorecard. Money's not the goal.
Mm.
Uh, if you're in sales and you do everything right leading up to that moment when the buyer says yes or no, if you've done everything right, you will always hear yes. If you hear no, it's because you didn't do everything right or they weren't a legitimate prospect, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
waste your time on illegitimate prospects. But if you're consistently on target, if you're listening carefully to what the buyer is telling you, if you're solving need, filling their wishes, silencing their pain point, turning the temperature down, if you do those things, you are undoubtedly going to be successful. And if you are then successful in that, it translates into your wallet if you're a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Or any business owner, right? I mean,
yeah,
no.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So I love the kill. I do. To this day, I love the kill. I love winning. Um, it, it it's, I don't know. It's an aphrodisiac. I don't know. It's just great. But I really do thank my mentors. I've
Yeah.
truly been very fortunate. Very fortunate.
Yeah. I mean, sales is it's one of those things. So I don't know what it is. It's a lot like sports. It's there's a lot of greatness about it, and I like what you said. It's exciting, and winning. Some people get offended that you're winning. That means someone else is losing. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as winning, and my client winning. Right, so there's multiple people winning here. It doesn't mean someone's losing just because I'm winning. Right? What's your thought on that?
No, I couldn't agree more. I think your competitor loses if you beat them out. But again, if you're solving your client's problems, if you're fixing, their issue, they've won and you've won. That is the definition of win-win, right?
Yeah.
That's it. If I'm competing against the guy next to me and I beat him because I'm better at it. Everybody says you have to have the gift to give, you have to be likable. Look, if you look like Quasimodo and you drool on your prospect, you're never going to get the order. But
leave me out of this.
but if you just are genuine, if you're listening carefully, if you're bringing solutions, you know what you're doing, why would a buyer go anywhere else? And that is me. Now, look, price matters. In my 500 competitors, half of them are a business model that looks just like us, but it's not an employee model. It's a 1099 independent contract. They're always cheaper. I'm always the most expensive in the marketplace.
Oh my goodness. So can we dive into that one for a second?
Yeah.
So what do you think of people say that my prices are too high, or when you hear that about other businesses and you live with that? What's your thought on it?
Your prices are only too high if you can't explain it.
Yeah.
If I'm buying Crest toothpaste at CVS and at Publix, and it's the same box, and one is 50 cents more than the other, then yeah, at CVS it's too expensive. If it's the same product, but I've mostly been dealing in services my whole life for product. If you can't identify what your value-added proposition is, and you can't successfully talk about the value added, then yeah, your price is too high. Doesn't matter what
Oh my
price
goodness.
is too high.
There's so much brilliance. So it's really just knowing why, right? We're more expensive because.
Right.
And then the simple thing, like if everyone else is a 1099 versus an employee, I mean, the owner is not paying the taxes on the 1099. I mean, hello, right? So if I want whatever amount of profit margin and my cost of goods are this versus theirs are way down here, of course they're going to be less. But what comes with that?
Well, and then
Yeah.
if they're driving mom to the beauty parlor and they hit a school bus, then you find out, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because they don't have insurance and you're the employer, as opposed to in my case, I'm the employer and have that insurance. So when you start to explain that, most
Yeah.
people get it. Now, some people, price is the only thing that matters, right?
Hmm.
Price only matters in the absence of value. If you cannot describe, if you cannot articulate and identify your value, there is no reason for being. Go
This
home.
podcast is such a keeper.
Uh,
There's so many pearls in this. Yeah, I just love that. Let's see. So earlier, you were talking about at your ripe old age that you're still excited about work.
right.
How does this apply? Because I think there's a chapter in your book about this as well for people who are older in life that maybe retirement's not necessarily for them, or that there might be
Yeah.
other options.
Um, look, and that's how I got into this business because retirement really wasn't for me. It just wasn't stimulating enough. I think, not everybody feels the same way I do, but whatever it is, if you're going to be in retirement, I'm 72, so I'm not a kid. Um, I think people wake up in the morning, they have to have a reason. I spent a year and a half waking up and 9 o'clock I had nothing to do, and by 5 o'clock I hadn't finished it. It was all nonsense. You watch
Yeah.
the screen on the ticker go by. I mean, take out the garbage only so many times. I played golf 5 days a week back in the day, and the same conversation was about your crazy kid, your crazy parents, the stock market, politics, or your lousy golf game. It was the definition of Groundhog Day for me. I, I realized that I still had a lot to offer. I still had a lot to learn, and I wanted to continue to do that. Now that was 14 years ago or 12 years ago. Um, Now a little older, and body starts to tell you that you got to slow down. Um, the way this has worked out for me, I've managed to do a lot of travel. I did a round the world cruise for 3 months right before COVID. I learned a lot. So I think people in retirement have to find a reason to get up every day. There has to be some purpose. You can volunteer. Volunteering doesn't mean pushing a wheelchair at the hospital. That's not what it can. It doesn't have to.
Hmm.
Lots of ways to get involved. Lots of ways to keep your mind active. I think that's critical. Otherwise, you're vegetating.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, I love it. I mean, yeah,
physically, maybe you can't do as much as you used to. Still do things.
yeah. What would you say, Scott, is one of the couple, one or two big lessons learned since you undertook this venture at age 58 or 59?
Um, Lessons learned. I, I, I think don't take yourself too seriously, which is where the humor comes from.
Hmm.
I think be kind of realistic. I think it's really important to want to be the very best. I know I've said that a couple of times. I can't tell people often enough. Um, Good enough isn't good enough. All right, that's not the key to success. Key to success is desire to be the best, and certainly to be amongst the best. Um, I think what I really learned in terms of the business is that the senior population is uh, massively underserved by everybody that serves them. Um, they're they're often thought of as over the hill, needy. The government doesn't really understand aging. There's enormous need. Chronic disease is critical. So I think I've learned that this is this was a perfect opportunity for me to put my skills and my desire to help people with the opportunity to make money doing so. So again, unabashed capitalist,
Hmm.
no apologies for that. But this was an opportunity to both serve people in great need and make a pretty damn good living. This is a sad business, right? I'm dealing with 85-year-olds who are smelling the grass.
Right.
They're not feeling well. Um, the end is in sight. I have crazy adult children, and I have a caregiver community. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Uh,
Right.
so this is, I'm dealing with people who are sad, they're angry, the kids want dad's money, the caregivers are, and they are underpaid. They didn't have a
Mhm.
choice of law school, caregiver school. There's, there's a lot of moving parts in this business. So if I could figure out a way to improve the quality of everybody's experience, their life is better, and I make money. And well, that sounds like a pretty good gig to me.
Yeah, yeah. And I sense that there's a side of you that's quite the humanitarian as well. Am I
Appreciate it.
wrong?
No, I think that's true. I've always done it. I serve. I currently I'm treasurer of the National Guardianship Association. The other thing I did is get very involved in guardianship. I'm past president of the Florida State Guardianship Association, the only non-attorney or non-guardian ever to hold that position. I've been on the advisory council of the Area Agency on Aging for about 10 years. I'm on the editorial board of Certified Senior Advisor. Over the years, I've been president of a synagogue. I was treasurer of the Long Island Philharmonic. I was chairman of the Heart Council of Long Island. I've been on the board of a, not this area, but of a chamber of commerce. I think I said president of a synagogue. I,
Yeah.
I have done a lot, but again, it goes back to what I said. I have no reason for having had the good fortune that I've had. I believe people are entitled to food on their table, clothes on their back, and a roof over their head. Everything else is gravy. Man, I swim in a lot of gravy.
Yeah, it's
Really
great.
thankful. So I think
That's,
I gotta give back.
yeah, so love it.
Yeah.
Dang, there's just tons of value here with all the things that you're saying. I had this great question after something about you being a humanitarian. Oh, okay, it came to my mind. I'm not quite ready because you during your speech you were talking about is this a sign of Alzheimer's, and it was the keys in the refrigerator, things like that.
Right.
Yesterday I showed up at my doctor with two different shoes on, not even close, a blue one and a tan one, and I was multitasking. All right, so
Perfectly
I
normal, by the
I
way.
posted that on Facebook and I said, anyway, these are excuses of multitasking. You try to do too much at once. I forgot I changed shoes midstream. Anyway, someone said on Facebook, said, well, at least you got another pair just like them at home.
That's a good story.
So, all right. So, my question, I guess, is if you were going to give some advice to a new entrepreneur, what would that advice be?
Well, that's a great question. Um, well, it's not a simple answer. I think
Yeah.
I
Just
think
wherever you go with it, I'm
yeah.
good with.
So so depending on the market, right? Products are sold. There's a marketplace out there. All right. People are currently filling that marketplace. So there, I do this in three circles. That looks like the old Budweiser logo. So products are sold. The market exists. People are buying. Somebody is fulfilling that market. Where do you fit in that market? Why you? All right. What are you going to do that's either going to build your personal brand? In my case, it's all about personal branding. I'm a big, big proponent of branding, but not branding your product so much as branding your person. All right.
Hmm.
So where do you fit in there? What is missing in that marketplace that you're going to solve? And maybe you're not going to be anything other than just better at everybody else. If you're not willing to be or attempt to be the best in your business, don't do it. Just don't do it. You need to want to be great. Um, and I think I once had somebody work for me who told me that I was insatiable, and he didn't mean that kindly, but I took that as the best compliment ever. I
Mm.
am. I'm insatiably uh, desirous of getting better, learning. I just that's just what I want to be. And I encourage. I do a lot of validation calls for our franchise. People thinking of buying territories, they always call me because they look at the top producer,
Hmm.
and they come to me because we're the number two franchise in the system, and So I always tell them, if you don't want to do this, if you don't have the heart for it, don't do this. You can do this. I, interestingly enough, did not call the top producers. I know the top producers are doing things right. I got that. I always called the guys that failed out, because in every FDD, if anybody's looking at a franchise, will know what that is, franchise disclosure document. I always look for the guys that failed. I always look for the guys that didn't succeed, and I called those guys, and I called them because instantly you could find out if they failed because it was on them or the system was wrong. The system didn't work. And it really saved me from making a mistake and going into a different business than this at the time. I looked at another business I was really interested in. And because I called all the bottom 10 in Florida, I found out what the problem was. And I couldn't resolve that with the franchisor and went in a different direction.
Right. Okay.
I try to find out what's missing in the marketplace, what problem exists, how can I solve it, what makes me different, and
be great at it, baby.
yeah, my job. You don't want to be great. Look, here's the one. I'll never be great at basketball. We're in March Madness. I could stand unattended, unblocked underneath the basket, and I missed 19 out of 20 free throws. That's not my game. I'm never going to make any money in basketball. But I want to be great. That's just what drives me.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you jumping on here with me today, Scott. I mean, again, I'm not just joking. I'm not joking at all when I say the pearls. I mean, this is one where I can replay, and I do business coaching.
Right.
Be great, right? Be insatiable.
Right.
Read. Stay on top of your game. Right. These are things that a lot of people just they get in business and they just expect to succeed because they're cool or they're great or they got an awesome website. You're going out making it happen. You're dealing with your brand. Your brand is not a logo. I mean, this is the Scott Greenberg brand is what we're seeing here today, and just great stuff. Sense of humor. I mean, you name it. You got it going, man.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you asking. This was fun. I don't talk about this much anymore, but I love talking about it, as you can tell, and I'm not shy. So, no, this was really fun, and I appreciate the kind words.
All right, awesome. Thanks again, Scott. All the best, and keep making it happen for our senior citizens and making their lives better, man.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
Be well. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Man, sales is tough. I'm just not cut out to be a salesperson. Have you ever felt that way? Selling doesn't need to be so difficult. My name is Harry Spate. I'm here to serve and to help you succeed. Join me as we discuss sales made easy.